didn't believe that you got everything. Gulbuddin Hekmatyar was a radical Islamist, a person who believed in a far more radical vision, and a non-secular vision, by all means, of Afghanistan. And Hekmatyar, moreover, had very close ties to the Pakistani ISI, the Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate. And the ISID, or as it is known, had very close ties to the CIA. In fact, during the entire Mujahideen period, basically, the U.S. aid that Charlie Wilson was helping garner and funnel into Afghanistan came through the ISID, basically in Pakistan, and then from there into Afghanistan. And one of the ISID's favorite people was Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, because I'm not sure that the ISID itself was full of radical Islamists. I think it was because Hekmatyar told them what they wanted to hear, seemed to be cooperative, listened to them, took their direction, and so he was their kind of guy. This is what intelligence agencies always prefer. They don't like an Ahmad Shah Massoud who's an independent guy up there operating on his own. They really prefer people who are docile or at least cooperative. And that was Hekmatyar. So going back to the scene in May of 1992, when Massoud and company arrive in Kabul, and they're being fired at by Hekmatyar, what you really have, boiled down to comes down to a Washington story. Here you have the State Department helping install a government, and the CIA helping organize the force that's trying to destroy the country. And this is a paradigm, actually, for much of the 1990s, where you had the U.S. government basically unable to decide which side did it want to support in the Afghan equation. And it's a formula which we've actually seen in other places, in other times, but it's one that always leads to calamity. And the degree of calamity is something you can't quite predict at the time, but it's there. And I have to say, because as somebody who's read most of the journalism of the 1990s about Afghanistan, I really never saw this pointed out as explicitly as I'm pointing it out today. It's not as if it's a pure picture either. The State Department and President Bush, Jim Baker, who was then Secretary of State, leaned very hard on the White House, and the White House leaned very hard on the CIA to curb its support of Hekmatyar. And in a way, they just desisted from time to time, but I think the ISID's enthusiastic support for Hekmatyar was something the CIA could not curb, and in fact probably aided in many ways. So in the course of the 4 years that Massoud and Rabbani were in Kabul, the U.S. position went from one of helping support, helping lean toward them, to one of to neutrality, to one of next to almost hostility, or certainly complete detachment. What happened was the Bush administration ran out of time, didn't get reelected, and the Clinton administration came to power. You've probably seen it many times in this country that a new administration sweeps into power, and the first thing they want to do, besides changing the locks on the doors and the keys to the safe, is that they want to change foreign policy. And this is one of the most amateurish aspects of American political life, I think, and it's one that causes great damage constantly. But it's a fact of life that we have to at least recognize. And that is that a new administration comes in and it decides it wants to be different from its predecessor. It wants to make a new mark. And so they adopt the attitude, anything but, and then fill in the blank. In this case, the blank was anything but Bush, and Bush-Reagan. And as the Bush and Reagan administrations, in a sense, had certainly the Reagan administration had a triumph in a way in Afghanistan, and the Bush administration, in a sense, was trying to bring about a stable outcome, building on that triumph, by helping install a government in Kabul that is friendly and that you can work with. The Clinton administration decided it wanted no part of Afghanistan, it wanted no part of really anything that the Bush and Reagan administrations had striven for. And so what happened in the very first year was, first of all, Peter Thompson's, the special envoy, was not replaced. In fact, there was never, he was supposed to become the first ambassador to post-Soviet Afghanistan. But when the Bush folks departed, the Clinton folks just simply could not get themselves organized to appoint anybody. So basically that post went vacant until 2001. Not having an ambassador, not having a special envoy, it sounds like a kind of a bureaucratic thing. But actually, an envoy or an ambassador is one of those crucial positions where, you know, that it's the one person who brings together not just the, you know, the facts on the ground and the political goings-on, but also the views of neighboring countries and views within the bureaucracy. And he tries to help shape them and organize them and respond and even devise a policy and then implement it. One person can do a hell of a lot, and without that one person, a lot doesn't happen. So the Massoud people were faced not just by a kind of an apathy from Washington, but basically an intention to disengage. And what happened was, in the first couple of years of Clinton, all the aid that had flowed to Afghanistan was essentially cut off. I think it's Margaret Carpenter, who was one of the AID assistant administrators, told me, and I asked her, why did you do this? Because, you know, the aid was like school books to the children of Afghanistan. It was medicines, it was food, it was just all sorts of well-crafted aid, things that had developed during the 1980s. And she said there was no lobby from South Asia at that time to advocate that aid. So in the absence of that lobby, I mean, imagine you have to have a lobby in order to advocate aid for a place that is I mean, this was not just any old place. This is a place that helped the West end the Cold War, helped turn history. It helped bring real change in the world. And it was all done on the backs of the Afghans themselves. And they didn't have a lobby in Washington in the Clinton administration. So the administration basically presided over a cutoff of all aid. Refugees who had come to the United States after the Soviet invasion, as you know, we have a lot of Afghan restaurants here in Northern Virginia, and we've had them, they're going to go back to 1979 because Afghans were allowed in big numbers, and we had, there's quite a colony here. Anyway, refugee flow was cut off to the point that it was down 1 or 2 a year. That also happened in the Clinton administration. And so if anybody in Afghanistan was watching, and a lot of people were watching, they could see that the Massoud Rabbani administration had minimal support from the United States, if any. Now the reason this matters is because, and it's a kind of a cliche to say that perceptions are more important than reality. It's a cliche that I really hate to ever repeat because I always think reality actually matters more than perception. But actually, in a place like Afghanistan, perceptions do matter. Why? This is not a place which you actually, which gets conquered easily. It is the topography of the country. There's so many immense mountains and deep valleys and ways to cut off. It leads to a kind of government, usually a weak central government at best, that gets along with the periphery, with the whoever are the local figures on the margins, by subsidizing them, for one thing, and by trading with them and keeping the roads open. And so if the central government is seen from the periphery as having no outside friends,